Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein remains behind bars today on the latest child sex charges lodged against him. Epstein's arrest last week has put the spotlight on a private Caribbean island he owns.
For years, investigators had gathered a vast amount of critical evidence through detailed interviews, extensive emails, comprehensive logs, and countless additional documents. Yet much of this evidence stayed locked away and sealed tightly under official court orders that prevented any public access. Victims repeatedly argued that this wall of secrecy was deliberately maintained to shield powerful individuals from scrutiny and to block any real path to justice, leaving those who suffered without the accountability they deserved. The official Department of Justice ultimately confirmed the existence of tunnels as part of a larger reckoning. They revealed that two separate underground passages have now been clearly identified. One passage proved accessible from underwater, according to the findings, while another video provided further confirmation of these hidden routes. Emails uncovered in the process revealed details of torture, intelligence operations, and an obsessive culture of secrecy that surrounded the entire operation. The paradise machinery frequented by members of the global elite lies down in that image, yet beneath it lay a far darker reality that had remained concealed for years. In August 2019, the FBI tore through the veil of secrecy when agents descended directly on the island. What they uncovered proved far more disturbing than even the most persistent rumors had ever suggested. Filings submitted by the victims' attorneys repeatedly identified Little St. James as the central location where his crimes took place, serving as the hub for everything that unfolded there. What seemed like a secret haven was no idyllic paradise inside the island. Instead, it housed crimes of the 21st century that shocked the world once exposed. Even major news outlets ran photo spreads and opinion pieces focusing on the island's strange architecture and its enigmatic owner, drawing public attention to the unusual features visible above ground. But while attention stayed locked firmly on the surface, the real story was quietly sinking deeper beneath Little St. James. While the entire world obsessed over the colorful dome on the property, nobody was asking questions about what existed underground. Nobody was demanding evidence of what was truly being hidden there. The world has always sought privacy in such exclusive settings, and in the obsession with the temple combined with owning a private island represented the ultimate secret that allowed everything to remain concealed. Property records show that the island had previously belonged to a venture capitalist, yet it remained largely undeveloped until the transformation began under careful direction. A dramatic transformation unfolded as millions upon millions of dollars were poured into shaping the terrain, importing thousands of mature trees to create an instant forested appearance, and constructing a network of stone-paved paths whose sheer volume proved overwhelming around the main residence. The sprawling colonial-style villa complex expanded significantly to include the 550 library reception rooms that opened onto sweeping ocean views, creating spaces that blended luxury with isolation. Throughout the first decade of the 21st century, the island functioned precisely as its public image suggested, operating as a gathering place for the intellectual and political elite who visited regularly. Architectural and lifestyle magazines praised the owner's aesthetic taste in glowing terms, highlighting the refined design choices that made the property seem like a perfect retreat. The guests who arrived were not obscure figures who passed through unnoticed. They included Nobel Prize laureates and members of the Mensa Society, along with renowned theoretical experts whose presence marked the first time the government openly acknowledges the court beneath Little St. James, attached to the same presence of such highly respected academic and social figures. This created a powerful aura of credibility around the island. Had conventional logic suggested that a place hosting some of humanity's brightest minds, where discussions ranged from quantum physics to the origins of the universe and the future of biology, must surely be a sanctuary of pure knowledge and enlightenment. The archive does not answer questions about security measures or control, which were explained as essential for privacy. Yet evidence begins right here, with an active memo and a photograph that inspire sitting quietly, as someone on the contrary myth of an island cultivated the image of the DOJ Arch of Science, who used his wealth to create intellectual conversations. The message was clear, that there were no obvious signs on the surface to raise alarms. Unusual equipment appeared under private jets that landed at nearby locations, while guests were ferried to the island by helicopter or luxury vessels following the familiar ritual of an exclusive resort. The perfection of this facade was complete, even laying hard flooring beneath a Caribbean island that seemed untouched by ordinary concerns. Observers who examined the island more closely through satellite imagery and distant vantage points found that the supposed paradise began to reveal unsettling irregularities that could not be ignored. The anomaly did not lie in a lack of comfort or basic amenities. Instead, the presence of certain structures defied the logic of a simple retreat meant for relaxation. No photographs accompany these observations directly, yet they only make the demand for recognition of tradition in religious architecture more pressing, with file names hinting at deeper layers. Or even more puzzling was the entrance to the main structure, featuring large, double wooden doors, intricately carved, yet blocked by a low barrier through the main doorway, making passage seem impossible at first glance. Surrounding the building were golden owl stoughs, a symbol found in Greek mythology representing Athena, or, depending on the interpretation, something far more ominous that stood out of the tropical landscape in a way that forensic auditors could not overlook. How would an American financier of Jewish heritage, who publicly portrayed himself as a religious devotee, construct such features through the most remote corner of the property, with 265 explanations suggesting it forming the unmistakable shape that revealed yet another gradual slope, where water pressed against smooth epoxy walls at the far end, thus ending with a metallic hatch shut tight. GPS coordinates embedded in the video match down to the decimal point from above, confirming the layout with precision. The tunnel is no longer a theory. Local research establishes it beyond dispute as a factual element of the property. The story does not end there, as the term charged with the evidence about expanded operations shows that operators were warned never to reveal certain details, with 743 references in Department of Justice video art captured through the darkness. Armed men standing on rocky outcrops appear in the footage, while a lone figure stands inside the absence of the camera in a New York City department, and the physical evidence visible created a troubling scene. It is a strange detail of a place on a Caribbean island that welcomes the horizon, and where insignia is distinct enough to pause on, and by contrast, the video shows a shield and a trail that cannot be ignored no matter how hard one tries. The presence of this element is not a continuation of the first heavily symbolic structure, but concrete proof that the island was not run for simple relaxation alone. The faint sound of logic that some outsiders could figure out stops at a branching junction, revealing it was far from an ordinary seaside retreat. Radar institution suspicion turned into direct confrontation with this 2019 raid, and the markings raise entirely new questions that demand answers. The Federal Bureau of Investigation conducted an environmental protection large-scale raid on Little St. James. This was no longer a visit from a construction match or anything superficial. Nothing but the full foundation of federal law enforcement entered a domain that had been tightly guarded for 2 full years. The official investigation captured FBI agents in tactical gear within seconds of arrival, documenting every aspect with intense focus. The scale of the underground network was not merely scattered or buried inside the Department of Justice documents. The infrastructure was designed independently from the outside world, with contempt warnings and legal qualifiers surrounding the words themselves that investigators used. They discovered an industrial-scale desalination plant capable of supplying fresh water for hundreds of people over an extended period without any reliance on the mainland supply. High-capacity generators were buried underground and linked to a private telecommunications network that ensured constant connectivity while remaining beyond the oversight of local services entirely. In another exchange documented in the files, a question helped explain how activities on the island could unfold effectively, invisible to outside territory or detection. Data gathered from on-site records, when cross-referenced with Flight 727 registered widely known as the evidence, began to reveal a chilling logistical pattern that tied everything together. The flights did not move at random. They followed precise routes linking New York to Palm Beach in a seamless operation. These words sit alongside logistics updates and maintenance requests for passengers transferred to helicopters or high-speed boats, completing the transport chain. The archive does not identify who is speaking in certain sections, but the presence of these lines inside official government files raises the stakes in a way that cannot be set aside or dismissed lightly. The tunnels are no longer just a question of hidden passages or concealed doorways. They are corridors running parallel to threats and to suffering, extending even to the possibility of murder, with all of it documented in language that demands real answers from every angle. The language inside the Department of Justice archive shifts again to describe a form of isolated economy buried inside maintenance mechanisms in the form of independent power sources. The presence of industrial-grade infrastructure on a small private island demonstrated that what occurred there was not impulsive or sporadic behavior at all. It was organized, planned, and systematically financed to operate continuously despite every legal risk that existed. This industrialization of depravity became clear as agents and forensic specialists moved deeper into the building during the search. The final veil of mystery was torn away completely, exposing a reality more stark and horrifying than earlier speculation had ever prepared anyone for. Little St. James was not simply a setting for Hollywood-style excess. It functioned an industrialized assembly line of abuse that operated with cold efficiency. Inside the main residence and scattered bungalow spaces, every area was configured to strip individuals of autonomy in deliberate ways. Massage rooms, a term frequently mentioned in victim testimony, bore little resemblance to those in ordinary settings or legitimate establishments. But they were arranged with professional massage tables surrounded by sensitive items and devices, organized in a manner that made the tunnels begin to look less like troubling anomalies and more like integral parts of the overall design. Still, Many of these rooms were designed with locks controlled from the outside or positioned so that sounds could not carry beyond the walls, ensuring total isolation. Patterns begin to emerge from testimony provided by survivors such as Virginia and Maria Farmer. When considered within this architectural framework, the details become deeply unsettling as they describe calls for subcellar elements found from the central complex. Both properties list shell companies with identities scrubbed from public access, hiding the true ownership layers. And the phrase lifeboat bunker appears inside of the temple structure and also began suggesting a shared account from former employees who witnessed the operations firsthand. Whatever its outward explanation as a music room or gym, the leading atmosphere within suggested an environment crafted specifically for psychological domination, forcing victims to move through disorienting locations across the island that formed part of a structure designed to confuse and disorient completely. Permit records describe it as a music pavilion, but the system of the building rises in an octagonal form rather than something rotated continuously from precise angles, drawing influences from South America and many elements from within the United States in its construction. The island functioned as a hub of intake and maintenance for the entire operation, where the boundary between person and commodities blurred into a system of control. There was no romance involved, no genuine connection, only coercion enforced by a workforce that included house managers, chefs, and security personnel who either turned a blind eye or actively facilitated the abuse in exchange for a general salary that kept them loyal. What shocked observers was not only the nature of the crime, but the precision of their organization, with files detailing financial management and logistics applied directly to human exploitation, optimizing the system in ways that creating information beneath the surface may never fully back up or explain completely. If the story ended with Epstein as merely one individual acting alone, and the depth of the infrastructure and the coordinated elements would still point to something far larger and more structured. The evidence compiled over time shows a deliberate setup that extended beyond any single person, incorporating layers of support and secrecy that allowed the activities to persist unchecked for extended periods. Every detail, from the sealed records, the victim statements, the official confirmations, the raid footage, the property transformations, the symbolic features, the logistical flights, the underground utilities, the room configurations, the survivor accounts, and the financial mechanisms all interconnect to paint a picture of calculated isolation and control that no surface-level narrative could ever fully capture. The obsession with privacy that drove the purchase and development of the island, and the importation of mature vegetation to mask changes, the expansion of the villa complex with its 550 library reception rooms overlooking the ocean, the praise from magazines for the aesthetic choices, the arrival of elite guests including Nobel Prize figures and Mensa members alongside renowned theorists, the creation of an aura of intellectual credibility through discussions on quantum physics, the universe's origins, and biology's future, the lack of obvious surface signs despite unusual equipment and private jet arrivals, the ferrying of guests by helicopter and luxury transport in exclusive resort rituals, the hard flooring laid beneath the Caribbean setting, the satellite and vantage point revelations of irregularities, the absence of accompanying photographs that still demand recognition of religious architectural traditions, the puzzling carved wooden doors blocked by low barriers, making entry seem impossible, the golden owl statues symbolizing mythological elements like Athena, or alternative interpretations that clashed with the tropical environment and the financier's public persona as a religious devotee in the remote corner of the property, the 265 varying explanations for the shape that led to the gradual slope with water against epoxy walls and the metallic hatch at the end, the GPS-matched video coordinates proving the tunnel's existence beyond theory or local research disputes, the raid video showing armed men on rocky outcrops and a lone figure in darkness with New York City departmental ties creating troubling insignia details on the Caribbean horizon that contrast sharply with any shield or trail imagery, and the shift from suspicion to direct 2019 confrontation via the large-scale FBI raid that penetrated a 2-year guarded domain with tactical agents documenting everything. The industrial desalination and high-capacity generators linked to private telecom for self-sufficient connectivity outside local oversight. The cross-referenced Flight 727 data showing non-random patterns linking New York and Palm Beach alongside logistics for helicopter and boat transfers. The unidentified speakers in archive lines that elevate the stakes in official files. The tunnels as corridors tied to threats, suffering, and potential murder documented in demanding language. The isolated economy of independent power and industrial infrastructure proving organized, planned, and financed operations despite risks. It's the industrialization of depravity revealed as agents tore away the final veil to expose a stark reality beyond speculation. The main residence and bungalows configured for stripping autonomy through massage rooms, unlike any standard setup with tables, sensitive items, devices, external locks, and soundproof positioning. The survivor testimony patterns from Virginia and Maria Farmer, describing subcellar elements in an unsettling architectural context. The shell company listings with scrubbed identities, the lifeboat bunker phrase in the temple suggesting employee accounts, the outward music room or gym explanations masking psychological domination and disorienting structures described in permits as a music pavilion with octagonal form drawing from South American and United States influences, and the hub of intake and maintenance blurring persons into commodities under coercion by house managers, chefs, and security staff who facilitated for salary, and the shocking precision in financial and logistical files optimizing human exploitation where surface information may never fully back up the depths below. This comprehensive layering of every element, from the initial sealed evidence and victim arguments against secrecy protecting the powerful, through the DOJ tunnel confirmations of 2 passages. 1, underwater accessible and video supported, the emails on torture and obsessive secrecy around elite frequented paradise machinery hiding a darker image reality for years, until the 2019 FBI descent uncovered disturbances exceeding rumors, the attorney filings pinpointing Little Street. At James as crime central in non-paradise 21st century island settings, featured in news spreads on strange architecture and enigmatic ownership, while surface obsession ignored the sinking underground story amid colorful dome fixation and unasked questions about hidden existences and undemanded evidence tied to privacy obsessions with temples and islands as ultimate secrets, the prior venture capitalist ownership left undeveloped until investigation. Directed millions transformed terrain with mature tree imports for instant effects and overwhelming stone-paved networks around the expanded colonial villa, including 550 library reception, ocean view rooms functioning publicly as elite intellectual political gathering, praised in magazines for aesthetic taste, with non-obscure guests like Nobel Prize figures, Mensa members, and renowned theorists lending credibility via government-acknowledged courts beneath respected academic social auras, suggesting sanctuary logic for quantum to biology discussions. Yet archive unanswered security controls, explained as essential, with evidence memos and photos countering cultivated arch scientist wealth for conversation myths, showing no surface signs, despite unusual equipment under nearby private jets and helicopter luxury ferrying in exclusive rituals, perfecting the facade with hard flooring beneath the island, examined via satellite and vantage, revealing comfort-lacking anomalies, defying retreat logic without accompanying photos, demanding religious architectural tradition recognition. The puzzling carved door entrances, blocked impossibly by low barriers, surrounded by golden owl statues clashing mythologically with tropical forensic landscapes, questioning a Jewish heritage financier's remote corner religious devotee portrayal, amid 265 shape explanations revealing gradual epoxy-walled slopes to metallic hatches with decimal-matched GPS video coordinates, establishing tunnels beyond theory or dispute, and the non-ending story of charged evidence on expanded operations, warning operators against 743 disclosures in DOJ video art through darkness, featuring armed Rocky outcrop men and lone figures in camera-absent New York departmental physicals, creating troubling Caribbean horizon insignia. Details distinct enough to pause, contrasting video shields and trails, impossible to ignore, as non-continuation of symbolic structures, proving non-relaxation concrete logic, stopping outsider figures at branching junctions far from ordinary seaside retreats, where radar suspicions confronted 2019 markings, raising new questions via FBI environmental protection. Large-scale raid, no mere construction visit, but federal foundation, penetration of 2-year guarded domains, capturing tactical agents in seconds with underground network scales not scattered, but DOJ buried. An independent infrastructure under contempt, warnings and legal qualifiers discovering industrial desalination for extended mainland independent water supply, plus buried high-capacity generators linked to private telecom, ensuring oversight-free connectivity, and the explanatory exchanges on invisible territory activities via on-site records, cross-referenced with registered Flight 727, evidence revealing chilling non-random logistical patterns linking New York Palm Beach alongside update maintenance requests for helicopter high-speed boat passenger transfers, where archive unidentified speakers in government files raise unset-aside stakes, turning tunnels from hidden passage questions into parallel threat-suffering murder corridors documented in answer-demanding language, shifting archives to isolated economy forms buried in maintenance, independent power mechanisms with industrial-grade small island infrastructure, proving non-impulsive sporadic occurrences, but organized, planned, systematically financed continuous operations despite risks as industrialization of depravity unfolded when agents forensic specialists deepened building penetration, tearing final mystery veils to expose starker, horrifying realities than speculation, where Little Street James shifted from Hollywood excess settings to industrialized abuse assembly lines, configuring main residents' scattered bungalow spaces to strip autonomy via frequently testified massage rooms resembling nothing standard, with professional tables amid sensitive items devices organized, making tunnels less troubling, still featuring outside controlled locks and sound, non-carrying positioning, and the beginning patterns in Virginia Maria Farmer survivor testimony within architectural frameworks, proving deeply unsettling, describing subcellar central complex calls alongside both properties, shell company listings with public access scrubbed identities, where lifeboat bunker phrases into temple structures began suggesting shared former employee accounts, whatever outward music room, gym explanations, leading atmospheres suggesting psychological domination, crafted environments, forcing victim movements through disorienting island locations, forming confusion, disorientation structures, with permit records describing music pavilions whose systems rise octagonally rather than continuous precise rotations from South American and United influences functioning as intake maintenance hubs, blurring person-commodity boundaries with no romance, only coercion enforced by house manager. Chef, security workforces turning blind eyes or actively facilitating abuse for general salaries. Shocking observers, not merely with crime natures, but organizational precisions in financial management. Logistics files applied to human exploitation, optimizing systems where creating beneath surface information may never back up fully.